On this episode of Scammer Stories, scammers will find you everywhere. And we all love a story about someone who beats the odds, someone who comes from nothing and builds something incredible. The survivor in this story was able to pull himself out of poverty as a child in the California hood. Marquise Thompson grew up in South Central LA, surrounded by struggle but determined to rise above it, and he did. Building a successful career as a real estate agent, helping families find their dream homes, and creating the kind of life he once only imagined. Little did he know, one of the biggest threats would come years later while he was building his real estate empire. Marquise thought he'd found a fantastic new client, and then, boom, ended up on the other end of a pig butchering scam. The charismatic salesman was just working his 9 to 5, as we like to say, or in his business, real estate is more like all the time. He's already written a book on the subject, which is amazing to me, as pig butchering is still so new that most people on the planet are still unaware about the topic. But it was one message, one connection online that changed everything. In this episode, we'll hear how Marquise rebuilt his life, not just financially, but emotionally. We'll talk about the red flags he missed, the tactics scammers used, and how his experience is helping others in his community spot the signs before it's too late. I'll let him tell how the story starts. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and a little bit about what your childhood was like and things.
Okay. I'm a city boy that was raised in South Central Los Angeles. Went to school and everything there. Yeah, just raised right there in what they refer to as the hood, right outside of downtown Los Angeles near USC. I was raised there, went to high school there. After I graduated from high school, I took off a year after the fact to join the Army. Spent 5 years in the Army, came back home, looked for work, found work. I traveled all over with work. Once I think I found my niche, it fell into mortgage banking. So, mortgage banking is a very up and down industry, and I went up and down with that industry, moving from California to Utah, from Utah to Atlanta, from Atlanta here to Dallas.
So we're in current times now, all caught up. All right, yeah. So you're living in Dallas, and you're working as a realtor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tell us how it all began.
All right. Yeah, as a realtor, I've been doing this now almost 3 years. So when I got that call from that person called Becky, it was real estate related. And it was no different from someone reaching out after reviewing one of my ads, advertisements, or whatever, on social media. And she was interested in me helping her and her family find a piece of property here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so, of course, I was excited. It was a very nice gesture and trust as well for someone to trust in me finding them $1 million plus piece of property. So, I was excited about that, especially being a new agent at the time.
In this case, the woman reached out on Instagram, which isn't all that far-fetched. I see my friends on social media a lot asking if anyone could recommend a realtor. The business is mainly word of mouth. A friend of a friend had a good experience and passes a name on to their friend and coworker. Like so many of us, Marquise thought this was just making a new friend, someone who seemed genuinely interested in his success and his future. What he didn't know was that he just stepped into the world of a pig butchering scam, one of the most sophisticated financial frauds happening today.
And so we went back and forth. I just went on the hunt and searched for properties, keeping in mind this person did not live here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, according to what she shared. She was living in California, looking to move to the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay, so kind of a red flag, but people move all the time. For example, my cousin moved from Washington State to my own state of Oklahoma a few years ago and wanted to buy a high-end home. I gave her my realtor's number, and they bought the house without ever seeing the home or my realtor in person. So over the next few weeks, Marquise would be convinced to invest in what looked like a legitimate cryptocurrency platform. The returns were fast, the numbers looked real, and the person behind it all seemed caring.
The long story short, I started looking for home for them. I started sending them homes via email. She contacted me, confirmed the receipt of the emails, and tell me what she liked about various different properties and so on and so on. So at no point was I even thinking about scams, crypto, anything. It was basically totally a business relationship with regard to trying to find her and her family a piece of property. That went on for several months, keeping in mind that there was really nothing that they really liked out of the 2.5 months that I searched. And then all of a sudden, April, that conversation, that relationship just stopped. It kind of just disappeared. I didn't hear from her for about a month and a half maybe. Wasn't counting, but out of nowhere, she resurfaced, very apologetic about not being in touch and for taking off. She said that her grandfather had passed away, so she went back to China to help the family. And okay, understandable. And so we just continued, looking for property. And then the conversations slowly but surely started shifting towards me looking for property versus me teaching her how to invest in real estate and her teaching me a little bit about crypto. So you can see that shift.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. Did the conversations get romantic as well?
They definitely got romantic. And that was the part where I was really feeling kind of bad because, one, I never met this person. But, yeah, they did. They started getting very, very personable. And, yeah, we can call it romantic. I was trying my best to push back on that because I am married, a very older young man, right? But, yeah, they did start leading into a little bit of romance. And it was a turn on for someone like myself, my age, to be flirted by a younger person. So, yeah, we continued talking, building the relationship, and building that trust.
Okay. And so she's teaching you about cryptocurrency. You're teaching her about investing in real estate. And then eventually she asked you to invest money.
Yeah, eventually we got to that point. Once, she started sharing with me all of the money that she was making. She used to send me photos of her money, She finally got me to open up an account with crypto.com, which is a regulated trading platform, as, most of us know about the regulated crypto.com. So I opened up that account. Actually, let me back up. I actually had that account opened up way before I met her. I had about $1,500 in the account. And because I didn't know a lot about crypto, I just left the money in the account. I just left it there. And so when she finally started talking money to me in regards to investing in crypto, I said, oh, well, I got that $1,500 that's just been sitting there on crypto.com. And so she introduced me to a website, a domain, which later I learned was what they refer to as a deregulated domain. So she introduced me to that site, a site that she had been working off of, and showing me how to trade on that particular site. And so I was trading initially with that $1,500. I felt comfortable. To me, it was like money that I definitely could lose. And, was just sitting there. So I didn't mind playing. I called it play money. And got on me about calling it play money. She says investing is very serious. It's not a game. And so I invested that $1,500. And when I seen that $1,500 on her deregulated account grow to $2,800, I was like, wow, this is kind of cool, So it got my interest, And to make a long story short, that $1,500 led to me putting in, I want to say about $15,000 into the account to go back and forth with the trading, And then there was this period of time where she says, if you really want to make lots of money, and trade crypto coins, of course, I didn't know a lot about trading crypto coins. She says, we need to have about $100,000 in the account to start trading crypto coins, because they're very expensive coins. And so over time, after I pushed back, and she kept pushing back, because I didn't, one, didn't want to go into my personal accounts for it, and two, I was somewhat hesitant, somewhat questionable in the back of my mind, but I did move forward with it. She assisted me with funding the account to get it to where we can actually trade Bitcoin. And we traded, and she kept making it a point for me not to do this on my own because I didn't know a lot about it. And so, me being a hard-headed boy, of course I tried it on my own, right? My first couple of trades, I actually made, at least on paper, on their site, $40,000. So I'm excited. And I shared that with her, and she got very upset about it because she says I was lucky. Okay, well, maybe I was. But anyway, I was very excited about it. One thing led to another. We continued to trade, continued to chat, continued to share stories, continued to share videos and pictures. And over time, that particular account got to about $465,000. So, I'm all in now. I'm all in, and, I'm thinking retirement, I can think retirement, this and that. I can, get my wife to retire, et cetera, when I've seen all this money. I've never seen that kind of money before, again, on paper.
By the time Marquise realized what was happening, hundreds of thousands of dollars were gone. And so was his sense of trust.
And when I finally got to the point to question what she was doing was when I was working or getting ready to make a couple of trades or transfers. One, pay her back, and to one, pay myself back for the money that I had taken out of my personal accounts.
Every scam victim has a point where they realize they're being scammed. Some deny it, and some admit there's a problem. Fortunately, Marquise figured out what was happening.
Something told me, Marquise, do your transfer first to your account and then do hers. Because I was very open and very honest. I wanted to pay her back for that money because I really felt bad about her putting that money into that account. So I set up the transfer. I set it up for my particular account. And it showed me on the system that the transfer was good. The money went through, but I never seen that money getting transferred to my regulated Crypto.com account. And so I got a call from her, and she was thanking me for paying her back that $50,000. And I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean you received $50,000? I didn't transfer you $50,000. I transferred me $50,000. And so at that time, that was when I finally got to the point to where I started questioning it, because how can I transfer money from my account and it ends up in your account? So at that point, I was done.
Okay, so how did that work then? Describe, how did she get the money when you were transferring it to you?
That's a very good question. And I don't know that I have the answer. I can only share with you what I think, only because it was all done behind the scenes. My guess is because that account was deregulated and controlled by her/scammers, they had to model my account somehow, some way. I don't know. So I'm still asking myself that exact same question. Because, my wallet was set up in my name. Everything was set up in my name, from crypto. It was a crypto wallet, Crypto.com wallet.
Maybe they mirrored your account.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they mirrored it. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of is that they found a way to mirror that account. And what was also interesting was, still trying to get through being able to transfer money back into my account, because I was very adamant about me having to, I have to fix my bank accounts. I got to put that money back. And we went from my accounts being frozen, me having to pay additional taxes, just like what I learned after the fact with regards to pig butchering. Everything that I researched after the fact was everything that I went through with them.
Okay, so what did you say to the scammer once you figured out what was happening?
I called her out on it because I had mentioned to her on a couple of occasions, that the domain that we was trading off of, I said, I don't trust the domain. And she says, what do you mean? I've been trading. I'm like, I'm not saying I don't trust you. I'm telling you that I do not trust the domain, and so on and so on. So when I shared that with her and started calling her out and even asking her, was she part of Axie was the name of the it was Axie something they called themselves. Were you part of the platform? And she says, no. Why would you ask me that? And so once I kind of accused her of scamming me, that's when she disappeared. She pulled down her account. My account was open for about 5 days after the fact, and then the account was locked. I couldn't communicate with anyone. Customer service wasn't responding to my emails and texts. And then one day I wake up, the account, the URL, everything was gone. With the $400,000+ on it or whatever, it was all gone.
Were you able to get any of it back?
Nope, not a dime. I did report it to, our federal agencies, but I didn't expect much. One, it probably wasn't a big enough scam for them to be going after something like that with an individual, and I'm pretty sure they had other, things that they were working on. But yeah, I contacted the FBI scam unit and so on. But no, I was not able to get not one dime of that money back. After the fact, doing my research, that's one of the biggest issues is, because of it being a deregulated trading platform that's not monitored or managed by any United States authorities. There is nothing that they could do internationally because no one oversees those sites.
And what did this do on your mental health? Like, describe what was going on in your mind once you figured out what was happening. That had to be so bizarre.
It was very, very bizarre. And I think the biggest part of all of that from my mental psyche was what I had put my family through, mainly my wife, because there was deceit there. I wasn't sharing any of this with her. I was hiding it from her. I didn't mention it to her until after the fact. So that was the biggest thing that bothered me the most was getting caught up in something like this, spending our nest egg and so on a scam. For me personally, it didn't bother me as much because, April, I seen the red flag. I seen every single red flag that was in front of me, and I ignored every single one of them. Honestly, I ignored every single red flag from the very beginning when a person starts asking you for money. I ignored all of it. I really thought that was a true relationship.
And how did that conversation go? I'm getting private here. How did that conversation go with your wife?
Of course, she broke down and started crying. She was more focused on the loss of the money, versus the relationship. She says, "You were going to leave me?" I'm like, "No, I wasn't going to leave you." I said, "That was part of, I said, I was doing whatever I could to make this money. I said, I was really caught up in making the money. Was I going to leave you? No." I said, the relationship that I built with her, part of it was a big game. As far as her teaching me how to make money, that's how I was looking at it. She's teaching me how to make money. And as far as all of that was concerned, I was open and game for all of that. But as far as leaving anyone, I said no. As far as playing the game of husband and wife, I said in my mind it was all a game because, again, she was teaching me how to make money. And in the end, I lost that game.
And you and your wife, were you able to work things out?
Oh, yeah. We, we just let it go. It was really kind of interesting because before I actually did the book, before I actually published the book, I gave her a copy of it, and that was about November of last year. I was practically done with it, and I didn't do anything with it. I just sat there with it. But I did give her a copy of it, and she did not want to read it. But when I actually published the book in July of this year, that's when she read it. April, she only got the chapter 2, and chapter 2 was where it was really talking about me and the relationship and the money and the husband and the wife kind of thing. She didn't go no further.
I don't blame her.
I don't either. I really don't. She didn't go no further. She put that book down. Yeah.
She might have been doing you a favor by putting that book down.
Actually, yeah, she might have been. Actually, after chapter 2, it got away from the relationship that I had built with Becky. It got more into the process and everything that I was going through. So it wasn't as personal. But that chapter 2, that she put that book down. Yeah, that was it.
Okay, so now that you know about pig butchering and you've done some research and you've written a book, do you think that you were talking to a human trafficking victim from Myanmar? And were there any signs or clues of what was happening behind the scenes there?
Absolutely. I really do believe that, when we think about victims, again, after the fact, after doing all of my research after the fact, they were just as much a victim as myself.
This was interesting to me. I was expecting him to say, I don't know what you're talking about, but he knows. That alone is a win. Scam survivors don't often know or want to accept that they were part of a huge trafficking scheme.
They were forced into these roles, gangs forcing them into these roles. They're applying for work, flying into Myanmar, if I'm pronouncing that correctly or whatever, and those other areas within Southeast Asia. And they apply for work, they show up, and then they get their passports and everything taken away from them, and they're being forced to live in these compounds. I honestly believe that person that I was going back and forth with was one of those people. There was one picture that she sent to me that was in comparison to all the other pictures. You know, all the other pictures that she sent to me were always, I'm going to refer to as her, being made up with this and that. You know, always made up, always wearing nice clothes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But she did send me one picture where in the background, you know how some of our homes, some of our older homes have popcorn ceilings, and you can look on the walls. And that was not a luxury type home. The background, the walls and everything looked very scrappy. And she looked very scrappy. At least the picture she showed me looked very scrappy. I'll put it like that. But to answer your question, yes, I believe that she, along with whoever else they were working with on my account, I believe that they definitely were part of that pig butchering scam.
So funny. When I tell people about pig butchering and holding people captive and human trafficking victims and things, people laugh at me like, April, you're so crazy. That's not going on.
It's real. I mean, it's real. So you probably also seen that video that's out there by our guy from HBO. He did a video, and it's very humorous, but he has you cracking up. And, you know, to show the compounds, to show the people getting beat and all of that, it's like, wow. And because of it being a multi-billion-dollar business, it's not going anywhere.
That's what I was going to ask you next is, what's the answer? How do we fix it?
You know, I think that it's going to really, for the bigger part, it's going to have to take a lot of international intervention, meaning that these countries are going to have to come together. The United States, I don't believe, will be able to do it on their own. I really believe that somewhere along the lines, you know, these countries are going to have to come together and work something out. These people are very, very sophisticated. Their systems are very, very sophisticated. I would not have been able to tell the difference between that system and crypto.com system because they, you know, I put them up next to each other when I was trading, and the rhythms and everything were pretty consistent with each other. I'm like, you know, I don't know how that stops, you know, but I am going to do my part. You know, I am in the process of writing another book that's more focused on the pig butchering side of it. But, you know, those websites that they use, WhatsApp and can't think of the name of the other one. I was really thinking publicly about going out there and setting up an account and just pushing this book because I'm pretty sure there are so many people out there just like myself that are on WhatsApp.
What made you decide to sit down and write the book, the first book?
The very first book is really interesting because I was, you know, once I realized that I got scammed, of course, I was pissed off, excuse my language, you know, and I'm upset with myself for ignoring everything that was in front of me. And I'm going to figure out how, one, if there's a way for me to get my money back, how am I going to go down that path? But I started documenting, and I was documenting it once I started feeling a little bit shabby about what was going on. I started taking pictures of the website, started taking pictures of the transactions. And once I learned a little bit about going out on the blockchains and trying to track and monitor transactions, once I learned those things, I started documenting them. I already started saving the emails and the text from her, the pictures from her, the text from the customer service. And once I started gathering all of that and packaging it, you know, for the regulators, it just went off in my head. You got enough documentation, write a book. And that's what I did. I started writing and started physically writing and writing and writing. And next thing I know, I had over 100 pages of documentation. And that's when I decided to go ahead and put it into a book.
And tell me about your in-person life. What is the reaction when you tell people that you know what happened to you? And are there times where you decide not to share that with people in person?
No, I think once I put it into the book, that opens it up. Once I put it into the book, it opens it up. Now I do, in the back of my mind, think to myself, I wonder what some of my friends really do think. And I don't think that if they are thinking anything negative about the book, it's chapter 2, what I took Sharon, my wife, through. Outside of that, I think that they think it was a really good read, but, all of the females that I know that know both of us, I'm pretty sure they was looking at that from a female's perspective. How could you do this? But most of the guys, they read through it and they think that it's a pretty good read. And it is a good read, but, from a woman's perspective, how could you do this? I think when they got to chapter 2, that's really probably what crossed their minds.
And so it's every day I talk to people and I'll say something about a romance scam or pig butchering. And still to this day, every day I talk to people who've never heard of it.
Wow, really?
Yeah, you don't experience that? People, when you say pig butchering, do people usually know what you're talking about?
Right. That is unbelievable because you and I both know it's out there.
Yeah.
I still get texts from people and, I chuckle. Hi, how you doing? It starts off with a hi, how you doing? Hey, I'm sorry I missed my appointment. And see, now that I've gone through all of that, I know it's a scam. But I was holding conversations before all of that, oh, no, I'm sorry, you got the wrong number. And they were all, I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed, da-da-da-da-da, but what do you think about this? Can we stay in touch, before the research and before the scan? I was responding to some of those texts and emails.
Did you have a hard time cutting your scammer off or not? Because some people do because they get addicted to the dopamine hits when that notification goes off that they're being contacted.
Yeah, I mean, I really believed that what was going on was true. And I was kind of hurt. I was literally kind of hurt. I think it bothered me for a minute that out of nowhere, one, she's not around. Two, I can't access my account. But yeah, it bothered me. It bothered me a lot. I have to admit, it bothered me. One that, because I enjoyed the communication. I enjoyed the conversations that we shared. So yeah, I think it did bother me somewhat.
But you were able to stop. So many people I talk to aren't able to cut that off. Is there something that went through your mind or a certain thing that clicked that made you be like, enough?
I came to realize it was a scam, and it was through my stupidity that I got caught up in all of this. So it was easy for me to cut it off. I had no problems cutting it off because it was all on me. I mean, it really was all on me. I started it, I got caught up in it, and I got burned by it. And once I faced that and, came to that realization, it wasn't hard for me to cut it off at all.
You're like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm good. Yeah.
You're still young enough and successful, so you can earn that money back. A lot of these people I talk to are older and retired, and they're just screwed.
Yes, they are. I mean, in this video, the guy from HBO, there was a banker. He's probably in jail today because he was using bank monies.
That was in Kansas. Yep. Next to me, the state next to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. Most of these people are older people that have retired. I'm older and I'm retired, but I'm still involved. I'm still, like I said, I got laid off in 2023, and I made my mind up that I was not going to go back into the corporate world, and that's just when I decided to become a real estate agent. And to your point, I am looking to earn money to pay myself back. That's one of my goals is to put that money back one way or the other.
Yeah, well, hopefully the book and the books will help. Tell us, where can people find your book, what it's called, and where they can find it? I'll put it in the show notes, but let's go ahead and mention it here.
It's called Crypto Deception, A Survivor's Guide to Avoiding Scams. And it is right now being sold only on Amazon. I may start looking for other publishers to put it out there on, but right now it's on Amazon. If they were to put it out, go out to Amazon, all of us have an Amazon account, just type in Crypto Deception or type in my name, it's going to come up. And if they are interested, I think that they would really enjoy the book. I think that it's sharing a lot, showing that now I'm looking to advocate for others and raise awareness to this. Because to your point, a lot of people really don't know what's going on out there, or they really believe that if it hasn't happened to them, it can't happen, yeah. And so on and so on.
We have a lot of education we need to do still. A lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
I've posted a link to his book on the Scammer Stories Facebook page, and I'll be sure to post a link in the show notes. Also, if you follow the Facebook page, you know that October 3rd was World Romance Scam Prevention Day. It's a day created by advocating against romance scammers, and it's finally starting to gain some traction. Many media outlets and lawmakers were talking about it on the day. We're already talking how to make it bigger and better next year, so you'll be hearing more about that. Until next time, Scammer Warriors.